Apologies for not publishing videos last week. I've been rather sick. Not with the Rona, thankfully, but with food poisoning and the fever that comes with it. What happened is, I eat some cake and the cake was like some leftover from 2 weeks ago. It still tastes okay, but I didn't realize how bad it is until the next day, so don't eat some random food in the fridge that you have no idea where it came from. It might hurt you. And thanks to the Rona being much worse than it was before, to the point where it impacts the lives of our local and hardworking VTubers, thanks to the idiots of my country making other people's lives worse with their ridiculous beliefs and antics, the lockdowns here will go on and on. And I personally take that as a good thing, because staying at my home playing video games and watching TV are pretty much the only thing that I can do. Unfortunately, some parts of the last generations of human beings don't understand the struggle of the younglings through these trying times and the things that they do in order to provide some mental relief and recreation. Those damn kids with their e-gadgets and e-things. How dare they try to have fun? Sorry to say this, old man, but they do try to have fun. Just because you don't understand them doesn't mean that they're evil, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's the same as drugs. Spiritual opium. Could gaming addiction ruin a generation? Said the title of an article from the Telegraph, which, by the way, I cannot access until I pay a subscription fee or if I get the archive version. Yeah, way to help the generations by putting your articles on a freaking paywall. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that boomer isn't just a way to classify a specific generation of people. No, boomer is a mindset. Doesn't matter when the age generation goes. I'm a boomer for not understanding how to use TikTok and have no interest in using it. But hey, I don't blame either gens for not knowing. I do, however, blame them for being willfully ignorant. What I mean is, I will blame them if they're holding the belief that they have, even if there are other conflicting factual information that proves their beliefs wrong. And that's what happens to a lot of boomers when they're talking about video games. They will still hold on to their belief that video games are the devil and will cause all the bad things in the world. In reality, video games are just like any other consumer products. Moderation is key, and consuming them way too much is bad. In the same way, consuming any other products way too much is bad. I certainly learned my lesson last week when I consumed way too much salmonella, or whatever is inside that poisonous cake. Don't overeat, don't play too much video games to the point where your other activities like chores or jobs are ruined. It's really not that hard to comprehend. And yet, this sort of thing needs to have a special classification, whereas addictions from other media consumption aren't. It's not okay for people to play video games, but it's okay for the boomers to watch the news 24/7 on their couches and think that the world is out to get them. And again, I'm not just talking about the specific age demographic. It's a mindset, which means that anyone can get hit. The subtitle of the article says, "It's an industry worth billions, but more than 86 million players have dangerous obsession, and the pandemic has only made things worse." What, worse for the gaming industry? The gaming industry is making loads of profit during the pandemic, and it's all thanks to the fact that people are staying at their home, and they got nothing to do but play video games. There's nothing wrong with that, but hey, boomers are gonna be boomers. It will surely never happen again, but every parent must have been nodding in agreement with the Chinese state media yesterday. Whoa, slow the hell down, article. One sentence in and you're already agreeing with a totalitarian government that stomps on people's rights. I've already talked about China's regulations on video games in this video during the whole debacle with the video game called Devotion, where the game got banned because they made a brief joke against the Chinese government. It's not just that the game got banned. Certain games need to have their elements changed in order to comply to China's regulations. It's not a good look praising China in the first sentence, but we'll continue regardless. The reason why I'd rather praise China is because gaming is considered a spiritual opium that has grown to an industry worth hundreds of billions. I smell jealousy from the traditional media from that sentence, and it's starting to reek. But anyway, no industry, no sport can be allowed to develop in a way that will destroy a generation. Define destroy a generation, and also define what it takes for a society to not destroy a generation. I assume it has things to do that are not gaming related, because gaming is evil and we have to stay away from it or something. The article goes on to talk about how it's hard to disagree with the writer. Actually, it's very easy to disagree with the writer because the previous sentence hasn't established anything agreeable. In fact, they're incredibly vague that I really need the writer to specify what they mean as destroy a generation, because that's a very serious claim to make. The article goes on to talk about how iPads and online textbooks are normalizing the use of screens in a way which is potentially harmful to teenage brains. Keyword, potential here. The thing about technology, especially when it's being used towards children, is that the parents need to understand what they are. The problem is most parents don't understand what they are because of previous generations' tendencies of averting their eyes on modern technology, even though in this current year, that's the only way for them to be able to healthfully communicate with other people and also healthfully work with each other. The article cites MRI scans or something and talks about how parts of the brain which control compulsive behaviors and decision makings tend to be less developed in teenagers who game for more than 10 hours a day. If your definition of destroying a generation is playing video games for 10 hours a day, which can lessen the development of the brain, then you're in luck because the average people during the pandemic spent their time playing about 8 hours and 27 minutes on average every week. Not every day, every week. Even I, as a gamer, don't play games for more than 2 to 3 hours a day, unless if the game really intrigues me, and that's incredibly rare because most games are just not that great these days. Solitaire is a more engaging experience than 90% of AAA games these days. The article then talks about video game history, starting from Nintendo, PlayStation, and growing on and on to the point where game development involves Hollywood actors that lend their names and voices. We also have more portable and more advanced devices that allow people to access seamless amount of information, and of course video games. Suddenly, games can be played with no more buffering, anytime and anywhere, and we parents enabled it. Congratulations for you to be aware of your personal responsibilities and keeping an eye on what your children are doing and playing. The article continues by saying that it worries certain parents because they're in a dilemma. Technology is a way for them to socialize and learn, but at the same time, technology is a way for them to play, and parents just simply cannot monitor their online activities. Some kids don't even want to join family meals, and there's a lot of resentment in the family. And I get it. I've been in this kind of situation as well, but with this kind of thing, you can't just punish them and deprive them of their stuff. You have to make them a deal. I receive X and you receive Y. You have to encourage them to work to achieve their goals. Lean more on the carrots than the sticks, and only use the sticks if they really misbehave. For example, I did badly when I was in elementary school. In result, my parents limited my time playing the PS2 to only be at Saturday and Sunday. And eventually, I got good scores, not just because of that limitation, but it's because my parents motivate me by giving me presents when I really do get good scores. Nowadays, the digital world is so necessary that people really need to be able to stick to their phones a lot. So my anecdote doesn't apply too well in current year, but what you can do as a parent is to teach your children to actually work for what they're trying to accomplish, and only drawing the stick when they seriously misbehave. Playing video games is a perfectly normal thing to do, and it's not a cause for punishment. What is a cause for punishment is playing them too much to the point where they neglect their own personal responsibilities. I've seen parents who are way too lenient with their children that it puts them on this comfort zone where they can do anything and get away with it, and that really hampers their development. I also see parents who are too harsh to their children, and while it leads into them being very disciplined and well developed, it's not exactly a healthy life, and it can build some serious resentment between the two. It's possible to have the happy medium where you reward your children when they do well and punish them when they misbehave. These two things are perfectly normal for parents to do. Nothing wrong with gaming, but there is something wrong with bad parents. The article talks about the 5 issues that hurt gamers. I think I saw these arguments before. It's from that online gambling website talking about how the average gamers would look like some deformed human being because too much gambling is certainly a good thing, right? But putting the person making the argument aside, the health concerns here can be legitimate concerns, or at least when they're not named as stupid as Nintendo-nitis. If you spend loads of time looking at stuff close, then that would lead into an increase in myopia. If you spend loads of time doing repetitive hand movements, that's gonna be painful. If you play for just even 1 hour a day, increases the risk of bad sleep quality because the bright light of the screen. Gaming can increase people's tendencies of eating even if they're not hungry. Your posture can also be affected while you're gaming because you're static for long periods of time. All of those are legitimate health concerns, but they're not the end of the world. They are manageable. They can be controlled so that you don't get the negative outcome. But hey, don't look at me for health advice. I am always sleep deprived. Point is, it's totally manageable, and parents can teach their children so that they don't get the negative outcomes for gaming and only get the positive outcome for gaming, because there are. Why else would there be playing if there aren't? What could be the end of the world is your children spending loads of money on video games without your knowledge. We've already established this many times. We've had stories of people who overspent on microtransactions and had to have their debt skyrocket because their children spend way too much money on FIFA loot boxes. All of that is still under discussions on regulations and government intervention from many different parts of the world, and gaming companies, or at least the big ones, are starting to realize the backlash. But it's still not enough. In my country, Indonesia, for example, we've had cases of people spending way too much money on video games. There was a viral video of parents complaining to a supermarket convenience store that the cashier just let their child to spend about 800,000 rupiah on video game vouchers, which is around $56 or so. One extreme case even had a kid to burn down an entire house because he couldn't find money in that house that he broke into to pay for some in-game cash. These are all really terrible things. Gaming can be a huge problem for people who are genuinely addicted to it. This issue falls on many significant factors. First off, the gaming industry can be an incredibly predatory place. Companies are going to do whatever it takes to gain as much profit from people as possible. And despite the backlash that we consumers have, they tend to just continue doing whatever they're doing because we as the consumers love to spend so much money on them and spend so much time on their games. We can't change these companies too much. The most we can do is to complain on the internet, and most of the times, they don't listen. Another factor is parents, and this is something that we can change. Parents, unfortunately, don't utilize technology to their advantage. All of this are preventable if parents know a thing or two about how to use their smartphones and emails properly. Let me explain. If you make a credit card purchase, these companies will send you the receipts of that purchase to your email. If you haven't made that option, you absolutely should. In fact, I recommend you to track all of your expenses and incomes and make sure that every little bit of change is known to why it happens. It's Financial Management 101. Unfortunately, and I've seen this firsthand, some older people tend to have their notifications full. My mom has her notifications full. My dad has his notifications full. There are professors that I taught in universities in regards to information technology that have their notifications bar in their phones spam with loads of stuff. They don't always check what's going on in and out of their phones, and that includes the notifications and receipts for their credit card purchases. All of this is incredibly preventable if parents are willing to learn a thing or two about technology, but a lot of people fear what they don't understand, and that's why they don't want to engage with it, even though it can save their lives and save their money. If the government and organizations refuse to regulate, then we have to regulate ourselves, and we have to learn more. We have to be willing to learn more. This unwillingness to learn can hurt people's finance and subsequently their lives. The problem with an article like this is that it talks about the gaming phenomenon and how it can hurt future generations. I get what they're trying to do, but they don't provide any sorts of meaningful solution to the whole problem in my opinion. It's just panic towards any sorts of technology for the sake of panic. And the overall vibe to this article is that we should reject the new technology rather than embrace it, even though new technology is what provides us a lot of convenience and help towards people. Personally, a more meaningful solution for the parents is to accept the fact that gaming is here to stay. Internet is here to stay. What they need to do is to understand how they work. If they don't understand how they work, then they can't make proper judgments to their children. If they don't understand that you cannot pause online games, then they cannot make proper guidance to their children. And considering how we're living in a pandemic and lockdowns are happening left and right, there's no better time to learn than now. As I said before, give children rewards when they accomplish something and punish them when they misbehave. Give them goals to achieve. Give them something to strive for. Give them something to not do. Give them things to forbid. Don't be afraid of punishing them when they misbehave. That leniency is gonna hurt you in the long run, but at the same time, don't be so brutal that you're gonna cause them to resent you. There needs to be a happy balance between the two. Technology can be your enemy, yes, but they can also be your friend. If you find your kids spending way too much money on a game, you will know when they spend their money on if you know how to manage your emails and manage to check your phone notifications. If you track your wallet, both digital and physical wallet, you would know if your kid stole your money or not. There are many things that you can do as a parent to prevent your child from spending way too much time on games. But that step would require you to embrace that technology. It's a weapon. It can be used against you, but it can also be used in your favor.